Good afternoon, and thanks for this invitation to be here today to talk about something that we've already heard is really important. We've talked about the people challenges all morning already, and I don't know that I've got any great silver bullets for you, but I think there's some things that I brought to consider. So we know that the mortality problem is complex, but so is the people problem. And when we combine these two things together, I don't think it's 1 + 1 = 2. I think it's more like 1 + 1 = 5. So how do we differentiate what is caused by people and what is caused by the animal? And we can think about things like PRRS. When a PRRS break occurs at a farm, was it because of lax biosecurity of the barn staff? Was it because of the location of the farm that was near another farm that broke because of people in that farm? Is it the contract grower that has no decision or control over the pigs that they get? If we think about lameness, is it genetics? Is it facility design? Is it people that's causing that? How do you filter those things out and really get to what is the human impact on mortality? And I'd love to be able to show some really clear, concise graphs that point to that, but we can't. However, one thing that certainly impacts performance that we found is tenure, time on the job. And we worked with the mash-off system and looked at 44 of their farms that had 125,000 sows over a 3-year period of time. And we looked at how tenure impacted different key performance indicators, and specifically this one on PSY. When we broke out the people's position and looked at the impact on PSY, there's some pretty staggering responses. So for a manager, for each year of tenure increase they have, it only impacted PSY by 0.12, compared to the leads at 0.45. But the caregivers had a 1.18 pigs per sow per year impact for each year of tenure they had. And yet, every system I've worked with, caregivers have the highest turnover and the lowest tenure. But they've got a huge impact on PSY, which is impacted by mortality. So how do we help transition and get caretakers to stay in those roles longer so that we can see that improvement? Another point specific to mortality, and I appreciated Joel's comments this morning about that, it is hard on caretakers. It is so hard on them. And one of the questions that a lot of our clients use as they go into, as they're interviewing people to come into their barns is, do you have a pet? And when they answer that question, you know whether they're an animal person or not. So even if they say no, but it may be because I live in an apartment, or it may be because my spouse is allergic to dogs, but you know that they're an animal person when they answer that question. So helping understand that we've got those people in our barns, then we have these major mortality events, and it's crushing to them, emotionally, mentally, physically. And that can't be underestimated. We've got really good caretakers that are walking away from our barns on a daily basis because it's just too much. So how do we even think about getting the right people for the right jobs right now with this labor shortage? McDonald's can raise their starting wages, and they can raise the price of the hamburger, and people continue to buy. We're not quite that fortunate, but today, instead of focusing on hiring, I want to focus on keeping the people that we already have in our systems. So to start with, I think we can look at 3 things. We need to help them connect with the purpose. Why are they doing what they're doing? And are they doing something that contributes? We need to help them find their passion. That's their emotional response to the job that they do. Do they do something that they really love? And finally, it's embracing their personality, finding their strength areas, and allowing them to do what they're good at. So if we start with purpose, we think about why. and what this means to different individuals is different. There has been a shift as we've moved from generation to generation of caretakers, and millennials are those aged 25 to 40, and the majority of our caretakers in barns today. Boomers are going to be those that are 57 to 75 years old today, and you can see these differences. So when you asked if the statement is true, work that adds value to the meaning of life, 75% of millennials agreed with that, where only 66% of boomers did. When they think about purpose and the work that adds value to the larger community, we get a wider variation, 72% to 58%. How do we help connect people to the purpose? So I've got a couple of ideas. Agriculture in general is not a glamorous position. Working in pig barns becomes even less glamorous to many people because of the stereotypes of society. We all live in communities and certainly bigger cities where they don't like livestock production, so it makes it hard already to attract people to our industry. But yet, what more noble purpose is there? Like George Washington says, agriculture is the most healthful, most useful, and most noble employment of man. That adds value to your life, and it adds value to your communities. Another way to think about it is that each pig that goes to market provides about 600 servings of pork. So that's pork that feeds our families, our neighbors, our country, and people around the world. So here's a non-economic value that we can talk about and help our staff understand why mortality is important. So if we think about a 5,600 sow farrow to finish with 27 PSY and 7% wean to market mortality, we take all of the pork produced from that farm in a year, and it could feed one meal to every person in California, Texas, Illinois, and Nebraska. If we made just 1% improvement in the wean to market mortality, now we can add every person in the state of South Dakota to that. So some small changes, big impact. And if we move PSY, that same amount, 1%, now we can add everybody in the state of Maine. In your farm, do your employees know, do your team members know how much pork they're producing? What is that contribution to the world that they're adding? And what do these small 1% changes mean? And how does that impact the world? If you're a member of allied industry, what are your products and services reach? Help them understand that and help connect to purpose. Next is passion. And I like this quote from Simon Sinek that says, working hard for something we don't care about is called stress. Working hard for something we love is called passion. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have stressful days even if we're doing what we're passionate about. But it's a different kind of stress. And you can handle that stress a little bit better. And so how do we help people find their passion? And passion isn't something that stays the same. You're not always going to be passionate about the same thing for your whole life. So sometimes we need to find it, and sometimes we need to reconnect with it. So here's 3 questions you can either ask yourself or ask your team members. What jobs do you look forward to doing? What are the tasks that you do that seem to fly by? And what do you wish you could do more of? It's not just enough to have this conversation, but we need to turn it into action. And researchers at the Mayo Clinic have found that doctors that work just 20% of the time in an area that they love are greatly reduced risk for burnout. So how do we get ourselves and our teams where we're doing 20% of what we love each day? So an example, Lauren is a caretaker in farrowing, and she floats between the different departments depending on the day. You have this conversation with her and you find out she really loves day 1 pig care. But she's really good at some of these other things too, and so you don't want to put her there all the time. But how do you get her there at least 20% of the time? May mean the difference between her staying and being a long-term employee or going someplace else. I think the other thing to help caretakers understand is that these roles are not all the same. And I grew up in a farrow to finish farm. It was small. I didn't work a day in the same department, let alone weeks or months at a time in the same department. I didn't do that until a college internship, and I quickly found that grow fin was not my passion. And if we take a step back and think about these caretakers that come into our barns that have no experience, do they even understand how different it is to work in gestation versus farrowing? Most of them don't. Those are two pretty different jobs. So it's hard to do that sometimes, but if we can help show them a path early on, not give them a chance to walk out the door because they don't like what they're doing today the first 5 days. Help them when they're onboarding them to share that we're going to have you here for a little bit and let you learn this job, and then we're going to let you go over here and learn a different job to see if this is a better fit for you. That's how you're going to keep millennials and Gen Zs in your organizations. And finally, personality. So all of these ladies have different personalities, and so does everybody in our organization. And too many times we want to treat everybody the same way, and we just can't do that. There has to be some rules and consistency around policies, but we also have to make exceptions and think about how we can treat each person and work to their strengths. So we are utilizing a platform called Cloverleaf with a lot of our clients at this point. And Cloverleaf's actually made up of 9 different personality assessments that also look at culture and strengths. And when we get caretakers and team members that have taken multiple of these assessments, we start to get a really clear picture of where their strength areas are. How many of you are familiar with DISC? Raise your hand. Okay, good. So I picked DISC because it is a fairly common one. So we're going to talk through some of the characteristics as well as maybe how we can create some roles around that person's profile. So for DISC, it's made up of 4 quadrants, and we all have a little bit of each one of these areas. So D stands for dominance, and dominance is about how you address problems and challenges. I is for influence, and it's about how you interact and influence people. S is for steadiness, and it's about how you deal with pace and consistency. And conscientiousness is about how you deal with policy and procedures. To the right is the office team, so from the TV show. Dwight is up in the D quadrant, and Pam is down in the S quadrant. The things that Dwight is good at is very different than the things that Pam is good at. The way that they can contribute to their team is very different. So if we think about this a little bit more, people that are dominant are big picture, result-oriented, they're self-starters, and they're competitive. So some jobs that they're good at is thinking about not just what's happening today in the sow farm, but what needs to be happening 4 days ahead of time. They're the ones that you can come and dump all of your problems on, and they're going to have quick solutions for you. Those that are influenced, they're fun, expressive, enthusiastic, and flexible. They're great at rallying people together. So when it's time to go wean or when it's time to move sows, have your eye lead those people. They're going to rally the troops, make it interesting, and get the job done efficiently. So those that are in the steadiness tend to be supportive, helpful, loyal, and thoughtful. They're great in the farrowing barn, helping sows, day 1, helping the piglets. They're supporting those sows, they're supporting the team, and they're being thoughtful in the way that they do it. And then finally, those that are in the conscientiousness quadrant are organized, methodical, accurate, and detail-oriented. They're great at paperwork and making sure that it's accurate. They're also going to be really good at walking pens, evaluating pigs. because they're going to be slow enough, they're methodical in how they do it. They're going to go in the pen the same way every time, where some of these other people are going to do it different every day. So there's a lot of opportunity for people to continue to utilize strengths. And we always feel good when we go away at the end of the day feeling like we've made a contribution and feeling like we're doing something that we're really good at. And a lot of times we don't take the time to get to know our teams to find out what they may be good at before we put them in a box, in a job, and this can really change the way that they view the organization and their job. So as we think about this, it's about the right people for the right job, and it comes to thinking what that purpose is, how the passion relates to what they're doing, and sometimes that may mean that their passion is beyond the caretaker level, it's beyond a barn level. How do you keep them within your organization and help them grow with you? And then using their personality strengths so that they feel good about doing what they're doing every day. And I think we need to be focused as much about keeping people in our organizations as we are on hiring. And that often isn't happening. We feel like we've got people in the barns, we're good, so let's keep on working on bringing in new people. And instead, we need to focus on making sure that we're able to retain the staff that we have.